Is the conservative movement in the United States of America fascist? According to the Southern Poverty Law Center study in 2022, there are over 1,225 hate groups in America. And after reading a book by the dearly missed Adeline Albright, Fascism, A Warning, I really got interested in the topic and wanted to juxtapose that for a comparison and contrast of previous fascist regimes. And according to the Council of Foreign Relations, there are 5 main stages of fascism. So we're going to go and discuss all of them today. I will let you know what I think in the end, and I'd love to see what your thoughts are. So let's go. The first of the 5 stages of fascism is growing disillusion. Okay, I think we can easily say that most people in America today are probably disillusioned by something or other. So far so good. But what are the conservatives and the conservative movement? And I'm not talking about all conservatives. I'm talking about the movement itself. Those who actively participate in change for fascist reasons. A lot of it had to do with the pandemic. A lot of it is the general decline of the middle class. The feeling that things were changing too quickly, specifically their way of life. Changes in demographics, changes in immigration, changes in composition of what America's going to become the next 50 years. They say that white European descent in America is going to go down in the future, and that with more immigrants coming into the country and those who are already here, and them having more children than those who have European descent, things are definitely going in one direction over the other. So there are a lot of reasons why people are disillusioned. Also has to do with just, ironically enough, government malfeasance and the feeling that government isn't doing anything for them. And so there's a lot of reasons why people are becoming disillusioned. And probably one of the most passionate reasons is the religiosity in this country, or lack thereof. More people are not going to church or to synagogue or to mosque, and an entire way of life for certain people is diminishing rapidly. So yes, I definitely think that there is a sense of emerging disillusionment out there. The second stage of the 5 is an established legitimacy of a political party. Well, one can counter that prior to the control of the Republican Party, the movement was already established amongst conservatives with the Tea Party and various incarnations before that. So yes, I think without question, anyone who looks in politics can say that there has been the establishment of an emerging political party. The party existed since Lincoln, but I think it's been completely co-opted, especially since the Reagan administration, and more thoroughly after the second Bush, and definitely during the Trump administration. So, yes to number 2. The third is gaining power via right-wing partnerships. And again, you could easily say yes to that. Looking at the study that the Southern Poverty Law Center came up with, 1,225 different groups. Not to mention the Republican Party themselves, the PACs, political action committees out there, and also the media. If you look at certain far-right media, they're almost quasi-government. They espouse certain beliefs. A lot of it is very opinionated. And yes, I think that we could easily say that we're definitely at or past stage 3 at this point. Number 4 is the ability of using power to dominate institutions. Well, if we're using this analogy, Trump became president. The Supreme Court, and again, I'm not saying Republicans in general, I'm saying specifically the conservative movement. Is it fascist? Many on the Supreme Court are very far right. And with Dobbs versus Jackson overturning Roe versus Wade and making abortion no longer guaranteed as a freedom in this country, I think we can easily say that taking over institutions, taking over or having media that is very pliable or part of the established conservative fascist movement, I think it's fair to say that we've definitely passed stage 4. And stage 5 is implementing radical reforms. So I think we're somewhere between 4 and 5 at this point in America in 2023. States like Texas and especially Florida under DeSantis has definitely become radically reformed. In those states, there's things like book banning, sometimes even book burning, sending migrants off to other states, the Don't Say Gay bill, the war with Walt Disney Company, I think are definitely radical reforms that we can see. And as DeSantis said himself, if he wins the presidential election, America is going to turn into Florida. So we've talked about the individual stages, and again, I think that between the 5 stages, we're somewhere between 4 and 5 currently at this point. Let's talk about what the definition of fascism is. Well, there's not really one definition. If you look at the different sources, including Madeleine Albright's book, there are things in common with fascist regimes and fascist movements, and that's what they are. They are movements. So let's look at some of those specific items and define those a little bit, shall we? Probably the first and most important is ideology. So the ideology currently of the conservative fascist movement in America has to do with the status quo. Very conservative, keeping things as they are, don't want to change the way of life, don't want to go and change the makeup of the country. That's why they don't want foreigners and migrants coming in. They want to disenfranchise people. That's why you see more and more gerrymandering and things like limiting people's right to vote or closing polling stations or causing havoc with counting ballots and court cases. Other items in the ideology is that certain leaders have certain power and that they are above the law. You can certainly see that with Donald Trump. No matter what he seems to do, there's always seems to be somebody, a group of people who support him. The cult of personality is very, very big in authoritarian and fascist regimes. And without a doubt, you can easily say that there's a cult of personality with Trump. Less so, I think, with the other players in the conservative fascist movement. In addition to these things, there's also the traditional values that's always espoused, and they're always the historically Judeo-Christian belief of the 19th and 20th centuries. Anything new is considered woke. The only type of change they want is a change back to these traditional values. And those things really only benefit the people who espouse those beliefs. So you also have a tendency of giving things to one group, your believers, and taking away rights and services and other things from everybody else. Whether that is progressives or Democrats or liberals or immigrants or possible immigrants. Everybody else seems to be at a disadvantage, and in some cases, by some of these people, they're considered enemies of the conservative fascists. In addition to that, there is a strong sense of militia and military components involved in this. They always say that they are big supporters of the military and they believe that they have the rights to bear arms to protect themselves against the federal government if necessary. So that is the big ideology in a nutshell. There certainly are more components, and not everybody who espouses being a conservative, believes in all of these, but enough so that it's definitely part of that mass movement. And the other thing about a mass movement is it requires action. It requires, in this case, a reaction to what's going on. People get involved by voting. People get involved by watching certain very alt-right news sources, using social media, going to rallies, going to protest certain things they don't like, and in some cases violence. Again, there is a right, they believe, to be able to cause damage to the country or to those people who were fighting against the beliefs that the conservative fascist movement believe in. That's why you see more shootings and why you see more stabbings and you see more violence in general in this country. It's something that they believe is their right, maybe even conceivably their obligation. That's why things like January 6th happened, and why so many of them were promised, if not necessarily promised, hinted at that they would receive pardons and that they were considered American heroes. And the reasons why these prisoners who have been arrested have done music videos and have gained a certain sense of popularity and notoriety amongst this group. So in addition to the ideology, we've also talked about the hatred for others, anyone who isn't espousing these same things, basically. And that's one of the reasons why the political party of the Republicans right now is so fractured. There are the traditional, or what we would call centrist, or even moderate Republicans are losing the battle against these hard right, alt-right fascists. So I don't think we need to talk anymore about the hatred amongst this group for everybody else. I think we all are cognizant of it. The other big component of any fascist movement is propaganda. If you look at things like Fox News and Telegram and alt-right media, you can easily see that they're all saying the same things. Often they have the same talking points, and anything that goes against their ideology is either marginalized or vehemently opposed. Even if it's crazy things that people have problems with, like the mermaid thing. You know, they were afraid that Disney was using characters that were trying to brainwash children. And why certain groups now are saying that Biden is trying to kill whales. I'll link that below. I'm not going to get into it on this video. Also, the whole thing about gay people are after their children, trying to groom them. They will do whatever it takes to marginalize and defend their beliefs through words and in deeds, and definitely using propaganda. Again, the propaganda in this country and a lot of these media sources are almost quasi-governmental. If you look at the guests on these channels and stations, a lot of times it's only other alt-right Republicans. So what does that say for fair and balanced news? The other thing that a lot of fascist groups have in common is a strong sense of nationalism and ethnocentrism and conceivably hatred of the other. Similar to the fact that they, in some cases, consider Democrats and progressives and liberals and immigrants enemies. They also have a bleak view of the rest of the world. That's one of the reasons why Trump, again using him as an example, did so much damage politically to foreign relations amongst our own allies. You know, threatening to get out of NATO and for getting out of the Treaty of Paris for climate change. And also supporting people like Putin and North Korea. There is a strong sense that the only friends are strong friends who believe the kinds of things that they do. So that's why a lot of Republicans, and even CPAC, the Conservative Political Action Committee, has met previously in Hungary because they're friends with Viktor Orban, who is another basically fascist. So with something like the cult of personality that we talked about before, there's also a strong sense of authority, which is not a surprise in an authoritarian fascist regime. The sense that certain people are in charge, again, they can do no wrong, and that people need to be obedient to them. Whether that's necessarily true of conservative fascism in America, yet to be seen. If Republicans vote for Trump, that'll be a clearer indication. So let's bring this all home. There are 5 stages of fascism. At this point, I believe we're somewhere in between 4 and 5. 4 being the power to dominate institutions, and 5 making radical reforms. And we've discussed the definitions, or what makes up a fascist movement. What are your thoughts? Do you agree or disagree? And I know this is going to be a very controversial video. It's something that I've wanted to touch on for quite some time, but just didn't feel like getting into it because it's so trying. It's something that we all know is happening, and very few of us are actually talking about, or we're talking about as much as we should. This really is a threat to democracy in America. And one of the reasons, honestly, I thought about moving out of America to a friendlier democracy. If things don't change for the better, it's only going to get worse. I think that's one of the reasons why Joe Biden won the presidency in 2020. A lot of people were voting against Trump more so than they were for him. And a lot of traditional moderate to center-right Republicans just were fed up with what Trump was doing and his whole MAGA group in the first place. It's certainly not too late. We haven't got there totally yet. Like I said, we're between stages 4 and 5 in my opinion. We're all still human, and we all still have common ground. We all want fresh air. We all want clean water. We all want some sort of infrastructure, whether that's roads or etc. We still have more in common than what separates us. And one of the calls to action on this video is for us to try to reach out to those who can be reached out to. I'm certainly not suggesting that you try to carry on a conversation with someone who genuinely hates you. But not everybody in the conservative movement, and certainly not all Republicans, are these fascists that I'm referring to. We need to reach out to them and find common ground and find a solution to this before it becomes too late. Let me know what your thoughts are below. If this video takes off, I don't know if I'll be able to go and respond to all of your comments, but I certainly will read them. And I think we all need to get engaged in this topic. Thank you very much for watching. Take care.